morning air was sharp, the sky overcast as a tall woman in a black tailored suit stepped into the entrance of Apex Auto Group. Her heels clicked crisply on the dealership's polished floors, her gaze calm and calculating. She held a sleek leather folder under one arm and wore a quiet confidence that made more than a few heads turn. But to Carl Benson, the dealership manager, she looked like nothing more than trouble. From his office window, Carl narrowed his eyes. "Security," he barked into his phone. "Who is the woman in the suit? She doesn't look like she belongs here." She hasn't said anything yet, sir," the young security officer replied. "She's just standing, observing." Carl didn't like that. He had built his dealership on tight routines and control. People didn't just walk in and observe. They came to buy, or they were escorted out. Charging down the stairs, Carl approached the woman. "Ma'am, this is private property. If you're looking for a brochure, they're online." "We don't take walk-ins without appointments." She met his gaze without flinching. "I'm aware." "Then why are you standing here like you own the place?" She smiled slightly. "Maybe because I do." Carl chuckled bitterly. "Oh, one of those. Look, if you're selling something or trying to get a donation, I don't have time." "No sales pitch," she replied. "Just observation." "Well, you've been seen. Time to go." Before she could answer, a black Mercedes Maybach glided up to the curb. A sharply dressed man stepped out and approached her with a document. "Miss Ellis," he said, handing her the folder. "Congratulations. The acquisition is complete. You now own 76% of Apex Auto Group." Carl's smirk faded. "Wait, what?" She opened the folder, skimmed the pages and nodded. "Thank you." Turning to Carl, her voice was ice. "You just tried to throw out your new car." Carl Benson stood frozen, mouth ajar, the color draining from his face. The words "new CEO" echoed in his mind like gunfire in a canyon. The woman he had just tried to eject now stood in ownership of his entire world. He had built this dealership from a struggling branch into a mid-tier performer. But he hadn't seen this coming. You can't be serious," he stuttered. "There must be some mistake." "None whatsoever," replied Miss Ellis, scanning the room. "You've been mismanaging this branch for years. I've been reviewing reports, sales lagging, complaints rising, and a toxic workplace culture that makes headlines in the wrong way." Staff across the floor stood awkwardly, exchanging glances. Receptionists froze mid-call. A customer at the coffee bar subtly started recording on his phone. Carl tried to regain composure. "Miss Ellis, I apologize for earlier. Had I known—" "That's the point," she interrupted. "Why does someone need to hold power to be treated with basic respect?" He opened his mouth but couldn't answer. She turned to the staff. "I walked in anonymously to see how this place truly operates. I saw discrimination, neglect and fear. That ends today." The staff looked on, stunned. Some nodded slightly, silently grateful someone was finally speaking truth. Carl tried again, desperate. "I've been loyal to this place for 12 years. "Loyalty doesn't excuse disrespect, Carl," she said, "and your track record speaks louder than any apology." Just then, Charles, the man in the grey suit, stepped forward. "Would you like us to prepare an exit package?" Miss Ellis didn't flinch. "Yes. No severance." Carl stepped back, panic rising. "You're ruining my life." She looked him in the eyes. "You ruined your own reputation. I'm just making it official." The dealership floor had never been so quiet. As Carl retreated like a wounded dog to his office, soon to be her office, the staff slowly began to stir. Whispers floated through the air like static electricity. Phones buzzed with silent messages, texts spreading the news faster than any press release. "Did you see that? She's the new CEO." And Carl, gone, just like that. One junior salesman, Malik, looked stunned. "Man, she's the real deal." Carl's assistant, Sandra, nervously approached Miss Ellis. "Ma'am, I had no idea. I just wanted to say thank you. Not all of us supported how things were run." Miss Ellis nodded. "Change is coming. But it won't be easy." In the HR office, a file folder marked unresolved complaints lay thick and dusty. She picked it up and scanned the pages. Racial profiling of customers, disrespect to employees, biased promotions, names of staff who had quit quietly, tired of being ignored. "Charles," she called. "Yes, ma'am." "Schedule meetings with every department head. I want every complaint reviewed by end of week." Outside the showroom, a woman stepped in holding a baby stroller. A young black mother, clearly hesitant. One of the salesmen turned toward her, almost out of habit, ready to dismiss her, until he saw Miss Ellis watching. He changed course. "Hi there, can I help you find anything today?" Miss Ellis smiled slightly. The change had already begun. Upstairs, Carl packed his belongings in silence. His old kingdom had been taken by truth, not revenge. But truth had teeth. He looked out the window once more and saw Miss Ellis shaking hands with customers. She didn't yell, she didn't threaten, she led. And the dealership was already starting to breathe again. By noon, Miss Ellis had already held 3 rapid-fire meetings. In each, she listened more than she spoke. Every department head sat nervously across from her, unsure if they were next to fall. But she wasn't swinging an axe, she was planting seeds. "Tell me what's broken," she asked one by one. "And tell me what you would fix if you had the power." Some hesitated, afraid of retaliation. But when one brave employee spoke about Carl's favoritism and constant undermining, Miss Ellis just nodded. "Thank you for your honesty. That's what this place has been missing." By the time she reached the service department, the tension had turned into curiosity. A middle-aged Latino mechanic named Julio stood with arms crossed, grease on his sleeves. "They fired my nephew last year," he said. "Said he was unprofessional because he wore headphones while cleaning cars. He was just trying to block out Carl yelling." Miss Ellis wrote that down. "What's his name?" "I want to reach out." Julio blinked. "You serious?" "Completely." Meanwhile, in the break room, employees who had been quiet for years began talking. Walls that Carl had built with fear were starting to crack. Downstairs, customers returned too, drawn by the viral clip someone had uploaded to TikTok. The woman who had calmly fired the manager? She was already trending. People came not just to buy, but to witness. Outside, news vans parked near the curb. Miss Ellis didn't flinch. Instead, she added chairs to the conference table and brought in the janitorial and security staff for input. "You see the cracks before anyone else," she told them. One guard wiped his eye. "No one's ever asked us," she smiled. "That changes now." By the next morning, Apex Auto Group felt like a different world. The waiting room was full again. Employees walked with their backs straight. Even the tone of conversation shifted. Respect had replaced dread. Miss Ellis arrived early, coffee in hand, and walked directly to the HR office. She placed a list on the desk. "These are employees who deserve second interviews, promotions, or apologies," she said. "Start the process today." Across the showroom, the walls that once featured pictures of old white executives were being quietly taken down. In their place, Miss Ellis ordered a rotating digital frame that showcased every employee, from receptionist to mechanic. "Every voice matters," she explained. "This is not Carl's dealership anymore." Outside, a group of college students arrived for their internship orientation. Miss Ellis greeted them herself. "You're here to learn business," she told them, "but also to learn leadership rooted in empathy." Later that afternoon, a young man walked in with his hoodie up and eyes cautious. He browsed cars silently, expecting to be watched. Instead, a smiling salesman approached. "Hey man, you like the Chargers? We've got one in navy blue." The young man blinked. "You're not going to follow me around? Why would I?" The salesman laughed. "You're a customer." Miss Ellis observed the exchange from the upper floor. Progress, she thought. Carl's office had been turned into a collaborative workspace. No more glass towers, no more yelling from above. By 5 p.m., the HR director handed her a document. Final termination report. Carl refused to sign, but his resignation stands. Miss Ellis nodded. "Good. That chapter's closed." That evening, she stood by the lot as the sun dipped low. A customer honked in joy, holding keys high. Respect, fairness, and truth, those were her keys now, and she had only just begun. As the days rolled on, the dealership began shedding its old skin. What once felt like a pressure chamber now felt like a place of possibility. Miss Ellis walked the floor every morning, speaking directly with team members, not from above, but beside them. She noticed things Carl never did. Sticky chairs in the waiting area, outdated coffee machines, an overworked receptionist who never took breaks. One morning, she arrived with 3 new ergonomic chairs and a state-of-the-art espresso machine. Small gestures, big message, you matter. In the service department, Julio's nephew, Marco, returned. He looked unsure, scanning the place that once kicked him out. But when Miss Ellis personally welcomed him back and introduced him as the new assistant team lead, his shoulders lifted. "You believed in me more than they ever did," he whispered. "I believe in potential," she replied. The next big change came with transparency. Miss Ellis hosted a town hall, something unheard of under Carl's leadership. The entire staff gathered, uncertain of what to expect. She stood at the front, microphone in hand. This company isn't built by one person sitting behind a glass wall. It's built by all of you, those who turn wrenches, answer phones, close deals and sweep floors. You all deserve a voice. Applause broke out. I can't fix the past, she continued, but I can build a better future, with you. That day, anonymous suggestion boxes were placed throughout the building. By the next morning, they were full. In one, a handwritten note simply read, "Thank you for seeing us." Another said, "This is the first time I've been excited to come to work." The old dealership had been built on fear. Miss Ellis was building hers on dignity, and the difference was starting to shine. By the start of the next week, the story had reached the local press, and then the national headlines. Black woman becomes CEO of dealership that tried to remove her, fires manager on the spot, class and power redefined, how one CEO is changing the auto industry. The article was shared thousands of times. Miss Ellis's calm yet commanding confrontation had gone viral. Interview requests flooded her inbox. But she remained grounded. Her mission was never about going viral. It was about fixing what was broken. The dealership saw record foot traffic that week. Not all came to buy cars. Many just wanted to shake her hand. Some brought flowers. A retired schoolteacher handed her a handwritten note. "Thank you for standing up without shouting. My daughter saw you online and said, 'She looks like me.'" Miss Ellis smiled, folded the note carefully, and tucked it into her coat pocket. Not everyone was pleased, though. A few former employees, loyal to Carl, spread negativity online, accusing her of wokeness and ruining tradition. Her response? Silence. She let the numbers speak. Sales were up 28% in 1 week. Customer satisfaction rose by double digits. Even suppliers called to express support. Inside the dealership, change continued. The team redesigned the showroom to include images of real employees, customer testimonials, and community outreach boards. One wall now featured a powerful quote in gold letters: "Leadership is not about control, it's about care. G." It stopped visitors in their tracks. That afternoon, a 12-year-old girl came in with her father to buy their first car. She saw Miss Ellis and lit up. "Are you the boss?" "I am," she smiled. "I want to be like you." Miss Ellis knelt to her level. "You'll be even better." Legacy was forming, not just through profits, but through presence. And Miss Ellis was becoming more than a CEO. She was becoming a symbol. Late one evening, the dealership was quiet. The sky was dark, and only a few lights remained on. Miss Ellis sat alone in the newly converted conference space, reviewing feedback forms from the staff. Each one told a story, some inspiring, others heartbreaking. Then, a knock. It was Carl. He looked worn down, not angry, just tired. "I don't mean to intrude," he said, "but I needed to see this place one last time." Miss Ellis studied him carefully. "You were warned not to return without a scheduled meeting." "I know. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to understand how I let it fall apart." She closed her folder. "You stopped listening. That's where all falls begin." He nodded slowly. "I thought control meant strength. I thought shouting made people obey." "And it does," she said. "But obedience isn't loyalty, and fear isn't leadership." Carl sat in silence for a moment. "I see that now. It's strange. This place looks alive, like it's breathing again." "It's because people finally feel safe here," she replied. He glanced at the wall where the quote shimmered in gold letters. He didn't speak, but his eyes lingered longer than necessary. Finally he stood. "I lost more than a job, didn't I?" "You lost their trust," she said gently. "But trust can be rebuilt. Just not here." He nodded. "Fair enough. Goodbye, Miss Ellis. Goodbye, Carl." As the door closed behind him, she exhaled. Closure didn't come with shouting. It came with truth. She returned to the feedback forms. One caught her eye. "Never thought I'd love this job again. Thank you for saving it, and us." She smiled faintly. Healing had begun, not just for the company, but for everyone inside it. Within 6 weeks, Apex Auto Group had transformed into one of the most talked-about dealerships in the country. Customers arrived from neighboring cities, some just to experience the new environment. Employees from other branches requested transfers. Even industry insiders began reaching out to study the model Miss Ellis had created. But she didn't let success cloud her focus. She launched the People First program, giving employees access to mental health counseling, leadership development, and emergency support funds. She also introduced customer equity guidelines, ensuring that no customer would ever be profiled based on appearance or background again. Feedback loops became part of the culture. Team huddles replaced lectures, decisions were made by groups, not dictated by one voice. Morale was at an all-time high. One morning, an older black man stepped in wearing a tailored suit and a proud expression. "My daughter said you're the woman who turned this place around," he said. "I just wanted to meet you." "Then let's shake hands properly," she said warmly. "I retired from Ford 20 years ago," he added, "and I haven't seen leadership like this since—" She laughed softly. "We're just getting started." Later that day, her executive assistant rushed in with news. A national auto group wanted to model 50 of their locations on her leadership system. They were offering a partnership. Miss Ellis looked out the window, the same window where she'd once been dismissed. "We'll consider it," she said calmly, "but only if the values stay the same." That evening she walked the lot as music played from inside. Employees laughed, customers lingered. This was no longer just a dealership. It was a movement. 3 months after the takeover, Apex Auto Group held its first annual Community Drive Day, an event offering free maintenance checks, financial counseling, and career workshops. Hundreds showed up. News cameras flashed. Local leaders gave speeches. Miss Ellis stood on stage as applause rang through the lot. She looked out into the crowd and saw not strangers, but stories. Julio and Marco worked side by side in the garage. The young mother who once entered nervously was now a junior sales rep. The janitor who cleaned the floors now managed operations at night. A little girl wearing a blazer and holding a toy briefcase waved excitedly. "That's her, Daddy. That's the CEO." Miss Ellis smiled. When she spoke, her voice was steady but full of emotion. "We started this journey not to make noise, but to make change. Respect, dignity, and trust shouldn't be revolutionary ideas, but in some places they are. Not here. Not anymore." The crowd erupted. After the speeches, a journalist approached her. "What's next for you?" Miss Ellis glanced back at the building. More of what? More listening, more equity, more change. That night, as the lot emptied, she stayed behind to lock the doors, just like on her first day. As she turned off the lights, she paused. On the wall beside the entrance was a plaque. "This dealership is dedicated to those who were once unseen, unheard, and underestimated." She placed her hand on it gently. Not every empire is built with concrete and cash. Some are built with courage, and hers had just begun.